I don't know. Cut us off.
Did Skype get bored or something?
Skype got really bored.
Where was I?
The idea and concept of networks really is being inspired by how new technology is now kind of really principally based on this concept of social connectivity.
Yes. And I think that I also feel that in a way what it's doing is it's bringing people, when I was saying that stuff about kind of distinctions of form and genre and things like that, but in some way they are also circumventing those. But what seems to be emerging is, people who say, I do dance because I want to say this.
Yes.
Because I want to say this, I am interested in working with, storytellers or scientists or, people who could be notionally very, very distantly or tangentially related, and I think that's really exciting. And I think if you put into that an element of sort of social purpose or social enterprise, as in, if you brought these people together, what could they actually do at community level or political level or social level? I think that becomes even more exciting again.
What the main criticism about new technology has been the opposite. It's disconnecting us. We're all talking through Skype now. We're plugged into our laptops. We're not talking to each other. But actually what you're saying is happening is that it's not about the method anymore. It's actually about what it is we're having to say, and people get refocusing on that.
Yeah, I think at an instrumental level, it's making sort of both connection and disconnection possible. You can share information and you can share ideas and connections with people and create content with each other much, much more easily. And I agree that it can also mean that you spend all day and all night on Facebook if you want to, and that's the way that you kind of relate to the world. I think the issue is really about what your intention is behind using that technology. You have to engage and create things in the real world, otherwise there's no point to the technology.
Those conversations that do begin virtually end up in the real world, and I think it's moving more that way from kind of the other way around, which was things, you create stuff and then you kind of create a website and you create your shop window for that product, whereas now I think what's happening is people are beginning to see it as a tool of connection, and out of that connection dialogue can happen, and out of that dialogue ideas are formed, which I think the 24-hour book project is a great kind of real example of that. So can you tell me a little bit about how that worked in real practice?
Well, yeah, I think this is quite a good kind of contrast, which sort of explains the sort of evolution of a particular idea in a particular process, because there was a project called A Million Penguins.
Okay.
Penguin Books set up a wiki and basically said anybody who wants to can collaborate to write this book, and it was just a complete sort of free for all. It became a victim of its own success, and interestingly, I think became a victim of its own branding. But because it had Penguin's name on it, it had sort of worldwide recognition, so it attracted a whole host of people, shall we say,
right
into this process.
Right.
Anybody could edit anything, so I think she said one person just went in, deleted the whole book and just wrote "fuck Penguin."
Oh my god.
So when we got to the sort of starting point for that book, there was a sort of feeling, we want to encourage this kind of this kind of collaboration. We want to use the technology, but somehow we need to kind of manage how the kind of contributions are made.
Yes.
And partly that was done through, you know, having a sort of live group of writers who, you know, participated in creating the main story, but it also had this open element to it whereby, you know, Kate was keeping the world who was watching online, or however number of writers online, up to date with the story as it developed, and they were putting their own contributions in.
Right.
I don't know necessarily that probably the open bit of it was the least successful. Certainly for the editors, it was the most difficult element to try and incorporate those
yeah,
into it. But I think at the end of it, what was fascinating about it was, I think we as writers all went in with a certain element of scepticism about how collaborative we could be, about whether the story would really make sense. And in an odd way, though it's not a standard novel, it does. And I think there are quite interesting creative reasons why it does.
Yeah.
And so it sort of opens up a kind of, you know, it opens up a bit of a window of possibility. It really sort of says, well, actually, you know, A Million Penguins was the sort of first experiment. This is a development of that, and actually it could be extraordinarily exciting to see what can emerge in terms of the form of this in the future.
It's what the internet is great for, is you're able to track that development. So it's a very kind of, it's almost like this sense of this live experiment that's happening all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I think the really interesting thing about it is, artistically, is that, you know, it exists as a process which you can sort of document. You know, it's a little bit like blogging. It's almost like a sort of, I mean, I don't actually blog, but I know from, you know, keeping journals and things like that, that's an extraordinarily useful way of reflecting and learning your process, or
yes.
learning what you're doing as you're doing it.
So looking forward to Archipelago, and the kind of, you know, how your ideas are forming around that. What's your hope for that? What's your kind of, your ideal scenario, I guess, for how that could work out and have an impact?
I heard somebody talking on the radio recently how we've become very fearful of failure as a culture, and that, you know, risk and experimentation,
yes,
you know, in all sorts of sections of society, that's becoming problematic. And I thought that was kind of quite an interesting sort of point. I mean, it was a sort of generalist point, but I thought it was interesting that you know, we're becoming very sort of unforgiving,
yes,
the society about, you know, people being able to sort of explore ideas. So I think one of the fundamental things for me with this is that providing the space for people to think about and reflect and develop new ideas in a place where they're not being judged immediately on outcomes is
yes,
really, really important.
yes,
Particularly if you're talking about people working across disciplines or across, you know, sort of ideas on, you know, all kind of domains and knowledge and all of that. And I think if it can provide that as a fundamental sort of starting point, and then from out of that what actually happens is really interesting and you know, groundbreaking ideas and projects come, then all the better. And I think they will come from allowing people to do that.
yes,
Allowing people to play.
yes. Well, Ben, I tell you, my everything is with you, because this is it's so what's needed right now in the sector. So yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll catch up soon.
All right.
All right. Take it easy. Thanks, Ben. See ya. Bye.